Hello everybody, my name is Joshua Kyan Aalampour. I know my upload schedule isn't the most consistent, but we're getting there! I'm currently at my workstation in my basement. The last time I showed you guys this place, it was pretty messy, and there was quite a bit of work to do. But check it out now! I'm gonna get out of frame a little bit so you can see. It's a nice space! There's a decent amount of room here, so I'm still trying to figure out what I can do with it. But for now, this is so much better and a huge improvement than what I had previously. Anyways, the reason why I'm making this video is because I wanted to share more of the meaning and backstory of my pieces with you guys. I'm not too sure what I'm gonna be calling this video yet, but I definitely want it to be a series, with each video exploring the complete discography of 1 year. Now, for those who aren't as familiar with my work, I started my musical journey on October 10, 2017, when I was 16 years old. And while I've been composing pieces since pretty much the very beginning of this journey, my first actual published piece, so on Apple Music, Spotify, etc., didn't come out until July of 2020. Since then, to the time of recording, I've published, I think, a little over 3 hours of music, mostly composed for solo piano, but there are some orchestral pieces in there as well. So in this video, we're gonna take a look at all the compositions I published in my first year on streaming platforms, 2020. So the very first piece, published on July 11, 2020, was a piece called Reverie. This composition holds a lot of sentimental value to me. It was actually one of the very first things I composed before we were even talking about streaming platforms, so back in 2017. One day I want to make a full video about how I got started into composing. There were a couple of reasons, but one of them, oddly enough, was because of this video game called Assassin's Creed Unity. Now, it might sound a little bit weird, but I was so enamored with the open world scenery that you had in that game. The game took place in Napoleonic France, and so you could wander around 18th century Paris and Versailles, and there was something so beautiful about that. I wanted to create something that would remind me of that scenery every time I played it, and so the result of that was Reverie. Something I find interesting about this piece is that my understanding of harmony and music theory as a whole back then was super elementary. But somehow I was using chords that, for me personally, have stood the test of time. There have been a couple of musical things that I used to do when I was just starting out that I look back on and I just kind of cringe, but this is not one of them. In fact, I love this piece so much that I actually reference the themes of Reverie in so many of my other works. I'm so happy to my past self for composing this. The next piece is my Raindrop Waltz No. 1 in B minor. I love rain. I love rain a lot. I'm not a particularly outdoorsy person, but anytime it rains outside, that is an excuse for me to go outside. It's just beautiful. Now, even though this piece was published in 2020, I actually composed it a couple years prior when I was still in high school. I was actually still in my junior year of high school. There are technically 24 Raindrop Waltzes, one for each key, but I've only actually published one of them, and it is this one, my Raindrop Waltz No. 1 in B minor. The reason why is because I am a little bit self-conscious about those works since they're very early works of mine. I'm sure one day I'm gonna get over it, but I always wanted to revise them. I feel like in my head I've been building it up for so long that I've kind of hit like a stumbling point. But one day I would really love to release all 24 Raindrop Waltzes, the complete set. The next release actually consists of 2 separate pieces, and it's titled 2 Piano Fantasias. In both pieces, I start with a simple texture and climax to a more technically demanding section. The first of which is called Terrifié. The first of which is the French word for terrified, and the second one is un amour impossible, or an impossible love, also French. I also forgot to mention, but both of these pieces were actually originally improvised. I think I still actually have the raw audio recordings on my microphone. I haven't switched the SD card since. I remember I was improvising for something like 20-30 minutes. I liked these 2 sections a lot, so I just cut them out of that 20 to 30 minute long just raw audio file and submitted them as their own musical pieces. Since then, Un amour impossible has gained some popularity. I actually also made a part 2 of that piece more recently that includes orchestra, but the Reverie is still kind of underground. Maybe one day it'll get its chance to shine, but honestly, it's all good to me. I published it and I'm happy. The last piece I published in 2020 was also my only orchestral piece that I published in that same year, and it's titled Unité, or the French word for unity. Now the backstory with this piece was that I was a university student studying music at the time. One of my classes was an orchestration class. The actual class wasn't very helpful in my opinion, but one thing I thought that really was helpful was this film scoring project we eventually got. So with this project, students were expected to pick scenes from a TV show, a movie, or some sort of media and score music underneath it. Now the media / scenes that I chose were the Assassin's Creed cinematic trailers. Now Unité can be split into two parts. The first part is a much slower section, and is actually for the most part just the same theme from Reverie, just orchestrated. The second part is much more aggressive. It builds up from a very thin texture into a grand orchestral climax. The theme that's used in the second part would actually go on to become my personal leitmotif. I plan to make a much more comprehensive video about that someday. Now, when I eventually submitted Unité to my professor, I actually got a B-, which hurt a little bit because by my parents' standards, that was just terrible, that you might as well just fail the class. But I don't think it's a B, I think it's an A+. I think it's an A+ composition. Am I biased? A little bit, it is my piece. But I still don't, But yeah, guys, that was my complete discography of 2020. That was my first year on streaming platforms. This is also before I took social media seriously. That happened later in February of 2021. So my listenership at that time was pretty much myself and my family members because I would force them to follow me. But regardless, those pieces marked the commencement of this new musical odyssey for me, and I'm so grateful to my younger self for starting in the first place. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I hope to see you soon.